you. I put this up here so you all can go and get the bit.ly if you wanted it. Just copyright today. And you know, if you've ever been to a KT session of mine, I love copyright. I've done it a couple other places, but KT's been my main place for copyright. Someone just this week called me a nerd for that, and I was like, it's okay, I embrace it at this point. I really enjoy it because years ago when I started on this little journey of copyright, I sat in a session at KST and I said, I have no idea what's happening right now, and I understand nothing of what this person is saying. So that was the point where I was like, I have to teach myself, because I just moved to the junior high, and I thought, man, I've got to be able to teach these kids how to use copyright, because as we know, they're not using it correctly. And that's part of my standards, you know, this was computer applications, what I was teaching. And so that's where I kind of started. And I was becoming the yearbook editor or the yearbook sponsor. And I was like, and there was a ton of yearbook copyright stuff in that session that I was like, what? I can't do what? And, you know, I was the yearbook editor in high school. And I was like, I don't understand anything they're saying. So I went to a couple yearbook sessions in Orlando one year on copyright too. And I was like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. But I decided I was going to delve into the law a little bit too. So why is copyright important to you and me? Well, first off, we are all copyright users, but we're also all copyright owners. And that's one of those things that people don't always understand. So copyright is an exclusive legal right to reproduce, publish, sell, or distribute the matter and form of something, literary, musical, artistic work, anything like that. I have lots of links throughout this, so if you want to look at it, you can. This specific link just takes you through and gives you a little bit more information. I also have these links in there because you might be teaching your students about this, not just using it yourself, and I want you to be able to have that information too. So, found these videos. These are new to me on the copyright.gov site and then found on YouTube. So we're just going to watch a little video about copyright to explain it just a little bit more. So I think I actually hit that, but we're going to see if we're going to go on through. I thought that last part was super important though, because sometimes we think everything's copyrighted. There's a long list of things that are not under copyright. Now they might be under a patent or a trademark, or they might not be under anything. And I think again that that's important for us to know, but also for our students to understand too. So in general, registration is voluntary for copyright. The copyright protection exists from the moment the work is created. So if you make it, you've created it, but you don't register it, you still have the copyright. And that's another one of those things. So if you didn't register it, it doesn't matter. As long as you can prove that you created it before someone else did, then it's yours. And that's where you get into a lot of the copyright issues. So being able to, you know, show when you did it is also important. But registering it provides those important benefits such as your proof of ownership. So examples, literary works, musical works, and that includes the words, dramatic works, including the music, pantomime script. So we've been over a lot of those, motion pictures, sound recordings, architectural works too. This week, my boyfriend's son is in town and he's 15. He's always wanted to be an engineer. Lately, he wants to be an architect. That's all he's talked about. He wants to be an architect. I'm like, how many you really understand? He's like, yeah, I can sell this plan and get $200,000. And I was like, hey, that's how much my house costs. You're not going to sell one plan and get that much, you know, like we talked about. But that's a good thing for him to understand too, that that is covered under a copyright because it is what he created. It is something that he created. And in order to, I mean, that's something that you would register and sell to make sure that someone doesn't just take it, because you do want to be paid for that work that you do. So sometimes it's just something that you enjoy doing, but sometimes it's your job that you want protected. So these categories should be viewed broadly for the purpose of registering your work. Computer programs and other things could also be considered in this as well. So why do we care? Well, first we care because, you know, we don't want to be sued. And that was one of the things that's come up a lot lately. My boyfriend's a TikTok girl. I'm all about TikTok these days. And he sent me one this week that was about copyright. And I was like, hold up. And this guy was talking about parodies. And I was like, no, it's under fair use. Well, as he got to talking, I listened to it a couple times because I was like, I want to understand this. But he was like, you can sue anybody for anything. And I was like, that's true. So whether or not you think you're in the right or not, you can be sued for any of these things. So as a teacher, if you're doing something, you want to make sure how am I least likely to be sued? Because even if you are doing what you think is right, that can still come back. So, but also it's in our Kentucky Academic Standards for technology. Some of the specific vocabulary in those standards, copyright intellectual property, fair use, public domain, and Creative Commons. All of those are in there because we want our students to be empowered learners. We want them to be digital digital citizens. We want them to be knowledge constructors, innovative designers. They need all of that computational thinking, creative communicator, global collaborators. All of those things are going to require them to understand copyright. And it's going to require us to understand a little bit too, so that we can guide them. Because again, we live in a different world. Like, I mean, when I grew up, you know, I had a computer from middle school on. The internet came around like big time when I was in high school, but it still wasn't the same. We were talking about it recently, and I was like, you had to like go on Ask Jeeves to figure out a question. You didn't just go to Google and start typing it in and like it popped up. Or someone was like, yeah, I used to like sit and like I would go and listen to like she wanted the Facts of Life theme song. She's like, I was obsessed. She's like, so my grandma would call me, hey, it's on right now. She said, I would sit there with the paper. She's like, for multiple weeks in a row, she was trying to get all the words down. And I was like, I never ever thought of that. But yeah, I love to know the, you know, so I always bought the tapes or CDs with the lyrics in it because I wanted to know. Now I pick up my phone, I just Google it. I'm at the movie theater and I'm like, why do I know that person? IMDb, right there. We didn't have that, you know, like it's different. But the kids now have everything. They never had that. Now I also was the generation where we started stealing all the music too. That hasn't changed. Hasn't changed at all. I mean, even we, you know, like it's your book, you know, we were told don't have these on your computer at school. We did it anyway because their internet was faster. So we did it, and I remember I was like the kid who we were all sharing like the same computer, but I had like my stuff pulled in a folder of mine. They didn't find all of my music, so my music was like saved and hidden. Everybody else had kept theirs in the same folder, and I was like, sorry guys. You know, like we came back from Christmas break, and that was like the big thing. They had like deleted everything off of there, like don't do this. And you know, again, like we went through I don't know how many streaming services like that, or downloading services because of that. But now you don't think about it. Like it's not the same. So we as their educators have to lead them. So we have to know a little bit more and know right from wrong because we didn't really realize, but the kids today don't realize either. Even my cousin who's like just a couple years younger than me, a couple years ago, she's like, she has an iPhone yet now, but when she had her Android, she's like, you can just get all this free music with your Android. I said, you're stealing it. You can do the same thing with an iPhone, just have to have a different app. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's stealing. If you're downloading the music for free, you're still stealing. And she's like, I didn't know that. I was like, exactly. So, you know, these are things that our kids don't understand because it's just at their fingertips to have everything where we didn't. You know, you could go get a CD and when your computer could, you could rip it. We ripped a Beatles CD, you know, one of the longest CD. We couldn't even put the whole thing on like another CD. It took like 5 hours to pull all the songs off because it was so long. You know, when we shared it, but like we just didn't know. And again, it was a lot slower of a process. You had to be patient. So that's one of the main things of why it's learning copyright. So we're going to start with public domain. It's the state of belonging or being available to the public as a whole. Therefore, it's not subject to copyright. You're not legally required to cite it, but most people do cite your public domain whenever they use it. And we'll talk a little bit more as we get into everything, a little bit more about public domain. But fair use is where we fall a lot. And I love fair use, but fair use is also so hard. It's a legal doctrine that promotes freedom of expression by permitting the unlicensed use of copyright protected works in certain circumstances. So again, certain circumstances, right here, all the stuff, us.gov, if you want to go through it. There are lots and lots and lots of cases that you can go through. It talks about all of it there, but I have it broken down all over too. So we're going to start with the video. And then we're going to talk a little more. Because fair use is where we're going to stay a lot today. So we're going to start right here for just a second. This is probably on the next slide, but I like to talk about it. So how many of you always heard, because I always heard it, you can have a certain amount of it, this percentage or this amount of minutes. That's not even true. I don't know who came up with that, who said that. I mean, even people who were like considered to be experts in copyright, I've been to some of their sessions or on their websites, and I'm like, that's not true. Like, it's just not true. But someone told them that they found as the authority. That's not true. And everything I found about it on, like, again, I've tried to research .gov because I know that's going to be the website that's going to have it all. it doesn't matter how much. You could use 5 seconds of it and it could be a copyright issue, or you could use the whole thing and there's no copyright issue. That is not the main part. Now, is it part of it? Sure, but it's all going to depend. So the purpose and character of the use, how are you using it? Again, non-commercial educational purposes, they're going to a lot of times weigh in your favor. Like, okay, it's for school, that's going to be more fair use than if you're trying to use it commercially. That doesn't mean that commercially can't be used for fair use and claim that. The nature of your copyrighted work. Are you, slandering the original work? That makes a difference. If you're hurting them in some way and they were making money off of it, that can be an issue on your side. How much of it that you use, and then the effect that it has, that's that part of that too, effect on the potential market. So that matters. Let's continue. That's your key. And I think it took me a little while to even realize that, but that's the one that came back recently when that TikTok came through. I was like, oh, you can be sued for anything. Doesn't matter. And it just depends on what that judge, whatever judge you get and what they decide. And that's all it comes down to. Now, could you appeal and get, sure you could do all of that. But I have always told people, I am not an expert. I enjoy copyright. I'm going to tell you all about it, but I'm also always going to tell you, you always have to do what you feel comfortable doing, because fair use is subjective, always. And it's going to come down to that judge and that date and whatever you have. Now, again, are they going after educators? Not typically, but can they and have they? Yeah, they have. And there are lots of different cases that this has been an issue with. So it's something that you definitely have to consider in your classroom, and again, to teach your students about, because they are going to be, hopefully, we want them to be creators. We want them to do that. We want them to, be creative, and that's why they have the copyright law. I mean, they talk about that a few times in this, where they say we want that creative expression. Take what someone else did and make it transformative, and that's okay if you've changed it and those things, but we have to make them understand how. And with fair use, subjectiveness comes in. No formula. That formula we were given, no, didn't matter, throw it away. Can it help you? Sure. I mean, a little bit, but not really. It's still going to come down to all of the other things that talked about, and you have to weigh that and then hope that a judge would do the same. There are lots of cases at copyright.gov. You can go there, go to fair use. There are cases to see what the precedent is. What was it? Let me see the similar case. So that you could use that if you were to ever go. Again, most of the time it's not going to be an issue for you. but it's something that you need to be aware of. It does require an analysis of all facts, judicially applied, and you can always ask for permission. And that is a big deal. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. Okay, so this goes through, there's some myths on YouTube, there's some fair use cases for your class discussion, but this just kind of breaks it down a little bit. And so this was one of the cases that was brought up in the TikTok, Weird Al. So they were talking about Weird Al's parodies, and they were like, just because you do a parody doesn't mean it's, and I was like, but it's under fair use. Like, I always tell people you can always do parodies. Anybody can see it for anything. But Weird Al typically gets permission. And these are all questions on his like website. Does he ask for permission to get his first parodies? He does. He always asks, and the law supports him, but he thinks that it's appropriate to ask permission. Because he's not writing all the music to it, he's going to write new words to it, and it's all going to change. What do they think of it? They're usually flattered by it. This said some groups, including Nirvana, claim they didn't realize they had really made it until Weird Al did a parody. Like they were flattered, yeah. Like I would be too, right? And then Coolio was upset about Amish Paradise. That he put out. Weird Al was like, there's miscommunication. I thought he was going to be cool with it. He wasn't. And that's what he apologized for it. Weird Al did. Like he wasn't trying to step over anybody. Like he wouldn't have done it. Even though, like he's like, I just wouldn't have done that. And then have they ever turned him down? Rare occasions. He's been denied. And he said on here, the artist formerly known as Prince, turned him down consistently. So that's on the website, and that's just kind of one of those things. Again, I always like to talk about parodies, and I like to talk about music with the students because that's something they can connect with. So if you're teaching this is a great way to hook them in with copyright. That was always my favorite thing to teach. I would be having a bad day, and I'm like, we're skipping whatever lesson we're going to do. We're just going to skip to copyright today, and like the kids love it too. But this was one of the extra things you can kind of add in about parodies too. So although the Fair Use Index should prove helpful in understanding what courts have to date considered to be fair or not fair, it is not a substitute for legal advice. Okay, so, and this is, it's a judge-created doctrine dating back to the 19th century, codified 1976 Copyright Act. Both the fact patterns and the legal application have evolved over time, but you should seek legal assistance as necessary and appropriate. And there's even one site that had at the bottom, and I think it's going to appear in just a minute. Ask your, school board. If you have a question, because they have counsel. I mean, we have counsel. I assume every school board does. So if you have an issue, ask counsel. I know during COVID, we did the read alouds online, and I was posting about it, and I got a message immediately from our PR person. And of course, like we've been friends since before I got a job in the district. She's like, can you do that? And I was like, yes. I've asked permission from every publisher, or they have it on their website that I can do it. She's like, I need you to put on everything that you put that you have permission, blah, blah, we've tried to do this in the past. And I said, I understand, but this is different. There's permission. I've gone to every website. I've checked every single publisher. And I know not everyone did that. Not everyone's gonna do that. But I take copyright very seriously. And I take my job very seriously too. I'm not gonna do something wrong on purpose. Do I mess up sometimes? Sure. But I'm not gonna do it wrong on purpose. And our district has been being like, people have used pictures on their websites that they weren't supposed to use. And the district got a bill saying, you owe this money. And they're like, what? And they, random teacher had it on our page, and they're like, hey, you gotta take that off, or we have to pay this money. So it happens. Not on purpose, but it does happen. As most teachers probably know, copyright law covers many of the things teachers use to educate students, from textbooks, music, artwork, plays, movies. That doesn't mean you always need permission to use these works. There are limits. Fair use is a big one. But fair use, while flexible, is not always easy to determine in advance. It's just not. And it's so hard because it's all subjective. So again, you always have to do what is covered. So here's some educational uses specific to us. They're on here. So So if you go to my bit.ly, you can click on YouTube and share these again with your own faculty, because that might be an issue that you want to share with them. Like you might want your teachers to know, hey, do these things and try to, you know, especially if you're the digital learning coach or technology person at your own school or district. So let's get some of the fair use, because I think we've talked about that a lot. But, you know, that's one of the things you might want to share with your teachers. It's kind of short, but it gives them an idea of things they can do. And the Teach Act, I think, is interesting. It started in 2001. I guess that, I mean, so it's not new. It's been there since 2001. And a lot of the things you do in your classroom, you can do, as long as it's not like live to anybody. It has to be people who are only in your classroom, and those people only. And that, for it to be covered under fair use and Teach Act and all the things. So if you're doing like a live class for anybody, that's not the same. Now, we're going to talk about movies. We talked a little bit about it in the last one, talking about showing a movie. If the movie's for entertainment purposes, you need to get a license for that. There's some information in here about the license. Most schools have them. I just got an email this week about, re-upping mine as well. Now, when I taught middle school, I never had time to show a movie, and I was related arts, so I really didn't have time. Where like the classes had parties, that was always going to be with their other, homerooms or whatever. And I have a homeroom. So we didn't have a license, and I showed a few things, but a lot of times I didn't even show the whole movie. We would talk about technology. I'm gonna turn that down. We would get to Back to the Future Part 2, and I would just show the part where they went to 2015, and we would talk about the technology that we saw, the technology we have today, and I would stop it. And then he was like, "Can we finish?" And I was like, "Well, no, because under fair use, really, unless we have a license, it's purely entertainment now. The rest of the movie is only for entertainment. It is not for what I'm talking about." So I would stop it right there, and then, they would like beg me to watch it. So, no, we're done. And then I showed like the whole movie of War Game, because I was like, well, this one will cover the whole thing, and you can see how the technology and coding and all, all the things with that. So you have to evaluate how is it related to what I'm teaching. We did assignments on it. I could prove that. And again, I could prove that it was fair use. I felt very confident I could prove that I could do that, even though we didn't have a license. And that's what this talks about. If you're showing it for educational purposes, then that's fine, as long as it is related to your instruction. Then you don't have to have a movie license. But if you're showing it for entertainment purposes, you have to have that movie license. And then this is questions regarding, talk to your school or school system. So in-person or virtual considerations, this statement was fair use and distant, or this was made about fair use and distant learning back in March 2020. I can't imagine why that came up. So this is talking, and has the TEACH in all capitals, it's talking about the TEACH Act. So it goes through and it discusses all the different things about what you could do. And a lot of things changed then because they allow things a little bit more because of what we were doing. If you want to know a little bit more, you can dig into this as well to find out some more information about what they did. So I think we've talked a little bit about that, but that gives you another thing to look at. Now, the read alouds online, like I said, those were like allowed by most publishers. There were a couple publishers who didn't, and I remember contacting them, and they were like, "Well, you can do it this way." But they didn't have the blanket statement. But you had to check with the publisher, not the author. Everyone was like, "I would ask the author, do I have permission? Do I have permission?" Author can't give you permission unless they are private. Most people have a publisher, and they have to give you the permission. Most have expired or will be this year, will this year for posting them. They'll be done. I think one of them had extended through December of this year, and mostly everyone else was done already. So if you are interested, check with your publisher. If you want to do this, you can always check with the publisher. Like, you can email them. I emailed publishers, and I got back a blanket statement multiple times, and a few times I got a very specific, thing back. But they'll give you, oh yeah, you could do this for this specific event. This is possible outdoor movie options if you have a movie license. And the movie license, if you have it at your school, you can charge for admission to a movie up to the amount of the license. But you can sell concessions and make money off of your movie license as much as you want. So if you were gonna have something. Now, the outdoor events, you have to have extra permission. They used to charge an additional fee, and now they've kind of changed it because of COVID. And you can fill out the information on this. And this is the one that
Case at some point, I need your help.
And it's the Swank one. But they will have.
I can't get my speaker on to hear this virtual thing.
That this is the Engage Your Creativity. So if you're interested in having your students learning a little bit more, this is some Engage Your Creativity information that you can share with them too, depending on the age group. And okay, so Netflix documentaries. There's some on YouTube, and then there's also some in-person screenings that you can go to through Netflix to get some information about that if you wanted to share, use those. But typically you cannot use streaming services. Now, Disney Plus. Most of you probably know the one and only Avid. there is not a video that I could buy. There's not a video, there's not a streaming I could buy. So I just went on Disney Plus and I went to the chat and I was like, hey, this is what we want to do. Can I get permission? And the person on the chat didn't have any clue about copyright. I'm just going to be honest. And I was like, well, this is why I can't do it. This is what it says. Here's the end user agreement. And they're like, hang on, let me check with somebody. They checked, they came back, they said, you have permission to watch this. Now, again, I explained why. I went through the steps. I contacted the district right away. I told them, and if they, weren't okay with it, obviously we wouldn't do it. But they were able to then lift the Disney Plus for us to be able to use it at our school because it was blocked before, just like most of the other things. And they lifted it to allow us to watch that. But asking permission, sometimes that's all you got to do. They'll say yes. I learned a little bit about this when I was in high school. We were, I was yearbook editor, one of them, and the last page, I always thought back, I was a huge Saved by the Bell fan. And I always thought about their high school song, their last song, and I loved the lyrics. So I was like, how can I get information? So we used, Ask Jeeves or whatever, looked up the, phone number, we called NBC, we figured out who to ask for the publisher, asked for permission, we got the thing back. I had to include a tagline in the bottom that I had permission to use that, and it was just the lyrics. But, our teacher thankfully was like, oh no, you have to have permission. You can't just use it, because I didn't know I couldn't use it. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal, I didn't think. But they gave us permission, we didn't pay anything. And so again, asking permission. The worst they can do is say no, and then you say, okay. So, ask permission. And again, we asked permission for that specifically because I couldn't purchase it anywhere. And I even said, I'm willing to purchase it. We will watch it every year. I know because they read the book in 4th grade and they would want to watch it. I have no problem doing that, but there's nowhere I can purchase this movie. And, they were super understanding of that. So here's the Teach Act that we were talking about. This right here goes into a little bit more information. Again, a lot of these resources you can share out with your teachers, or you can just kind of take a look at yourself because that might be something that you want to familiarize yourself with more. You might be sitting in here like I was however many years ago at Kids Be saying, I don't understand what they're talking about. But hopefully these resources break it down a little bit more. So this goes over it just a little bit more, but this is a nice little checklist I found that can help you figure out if you can do it. Are you in compliance? These are the things you need to do to be in compliance with it. So virtual movie options, that was a big thing, and we don't have as many virtual classrooms, but I do see that's a thing that you could be doing or you could get into. Again, you're not supposed to do that over Zoom, Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, whatever. You're not supposed to do it. A lot of people did, and they just did. I mean, it was 2020. No one's going to say a whole lot because it was 2020. We were just trying to get by with life and get everybody in a good mood with them, apparently. I mean, that was just our main goal, I think, for a little while, just to appease everybody. But they did have permission. Now, there are virtual movie options through Swank that you can apply to have that right to do, but it's money, and no one typically wants to pay. I think it's like $100 or something for a movie, So, but their information is on here because that might be something that you do want to do at some point and that someone wants to do. And actually, this is the active annual license allows you to show approved titles with check payment under. So it's only $100, I guess, for that license annually. So that's not horrible, but everything kind of adds up, and you have to consider that and see what. It's not going to be every movie, and so these are still not allowed for this, but you can do it in a different way. We had this before 2020. I think we had it in 2019 to 2020, where we could the Swank streaming service, and then we could go on and our students could have accounts and they could stream the movies. I know. Yeah, and it's the same. I mean, it's the same one that's been there. I guess Swank bought the school. What's the one? I mean, it's what we have there. I always call it Swank because we've done it for so long now. But it's just what everybody uses someone else might name of it. But there's lots of information on here as well. Anyway, the license is the school public license, but it's through Swank.
Is it school or district?
School, yeah. And it's a site license, so if you have after-school programs, they don't have it, but that's another thing, like after-school shouldn't be showing them unless they have a license for your school. So, but if your school has a license, you can tell the after-school, they can use it. So recent copyright questions that we've had, the Bitmoji classrooms were a big one. A lot of people said, well, you're just linking stuff in your Bitmoji classrooms, like you're linking a full book. I'm linking it, but I didn't create it. I don't believe that I'm ever going to get in trouble for my Bitmoji classroom because I didn't produce what's on there. I'm linking, I don't know, I assume that everyone who puts their stuff online has done that in a legal manner. If they did not do it in a legal manner, I'll try to find another one, or I'll take that one down. And a lot of your Bitmoji classrooms, that's one of the things that was a big topic as well. You can't copyright your Bitmoji classroom. People were sharing those and trying to sell them. And there's a lot of options out there for free Bitmoji classrooms to be able to take and modify. But I cannot find any legal, legalities that would say those are not okay. Same thing, the link to books being right on YouTube. Again, I would not create them. I would not advise anyone else to create them, but I'm not going to say it's, that you can't link that and to let your students use that. Sharing through Google Drive. Well, what if I want to share this and I want to put it on Google Drive so that no one else can see it? It goes back to the Teach Act. What were your virtual options? Can you share a textbook on Google Drive for your students? No, that's unless you have a license, you do it specifically in that way. And most of the time, if you have an online license, they'll log in a different way. It's not just going to be through Google Drive, even though that's locked down. So consider that. And again, that's the same thing with the publisher, the read aloud. Well, what if we do a read aloud and we just lock it down on Google Drive? What's the publisher say? Does the publisher say that's okay? Because that's now a video that the kids can go home and watch when they're at home. That is not in-class virtual class anymore. That's a little different. So those are some things you have to consider. And again, not just Google Drive, that's just what we use, but whatever you might use to host, that's a consideration to make. So here's your media at school, the movies. We talked about the streaming services, their end user agreements. You are not supposed to pay. Yes, I actually logged in. We have like a school Amazon, if everybody has like a school Amazon account, but we have like one that we were buying movies on, because if you buy the movie, then you can show it. So we were buying like movies on it, and the teachers could log in to show it. And I went on there one day and I was like, so I would go in and one of the teachers was like, can you go in and take my credit card information out? And so I went in and I was like, who bought Amazon Prime on this account? One of our teachers had gone in and put in her credit card information, bought Amazon Prime and had no idea. Just didn't even, because she's like, well, it's our school account. I'm like, we still can't do it that way. So here I was, I'm like, in Amazon Prime, take her credit card information out, like doing all the steps because we can't do that. But her kids enjoyed watching it, and, I get it. Her students were, they needed a little extra. And so they enjoyed watching some of those, and I was like, well, we can't do it that way. If there's something I can buy for you, I can do that, but we can't just stream. So that's something, and again, our Amazon's not blocked for that, but you're not supposed to use your streaming. Now there are some free movies on Amazon. We have a license, as long as it covers it and they're free. I think that could possibly be okay. You're not paying for it. Like it's not a paid service, it's free. It would be like going to a website and watching it. And then this is the Maccabeah Kentucky Shared Collection. There's information on there. If you're not a member and you're interested, all the librarians share across Kentucky some of the same books for various collections, and that's a great way to have your ebooks online. There's audiobooks on there, and we really enjoy it. So that's there if you are interested in that. So Creative Commons. This is a nonprofit. It's actually just turned 20, which I think is crazy. Because when I got in, I didn't ever know about Creative Commons, and I haven't been in teaching for 20 years. But it's been around for 20 years. But they enable the sharing and use of the creativity through a different license. Here's the link that you can go to, and this is going to give you lots of information about it. And then you can search for it. You can register your own work, and you can teach your students to do that too. The code.org, some of their projects would allow the students to create a Creative Commons license for the work they were creating and coding, and to be able to share that with other people, which I thought was really cool, because they got to make that decision. Do you want to allow someone else to, because there's various things about what you can do with it. Can you share it non-commercially, or can you share it commercially? Are they allowed to reproduce, remix it? Are they allowed to change it in any way? You get to make that decision as the license holder of that and share that out. But that's the other thing, you have to read exactly what it is on that Creative Commons license to know what you can do with it if you choose something else to use. Some people are they're not trying to remix it, they just want to use that specific product. So, as long as it's on that license, you're using it in that way, you're fine. Okay, so here's some sites for online resources. The advanced Google search is great. You have to be careful because sometimes it still pulls up copyright images. But if you go here, you go tools, usage rights. I always select Creative Commons license. If I'm using it for school, you could do the other, but it limits it a little bit more. And then these are supposed to be images that are fine for you to use in anything. Doesn't matter. Not just in your classroom, but you can post these online. It doesn't matter. But every single, and it's funny because a lot of these are on some of the sites that are like our district blocks. And I'm like, can't find the picture. But a lot of these are also Wikimedia Commons, which is one of my favorites too. So you can go here I do love Wikimedia Commons for multiple reasons, but you can download it. There's various sizes. And then if you use this file on the web, you can give it credit. Right here is your attribution, and it has the Creative Commons by 2.0. So you can click to find out what that means. But right here, you can just copy of that, put it right into whatever you're using to give your attribution. So that is one of my favorites, just using Wikimedia Commons, which is over here, Wikimedia. Unsplash, Pixabay, Workfile, Explore, and Google Docs. This is also one of my favorites. Again, because we're a Google district. If you're not a Google district, then it's not going to be the same. But you start and you click insert, and this teaches you how, but click insert, image, search the web. And you can right over here and search for whatever you want to search for. That's how I got most of my images today. That Weird Al picture was right here. I just searched it. Click on it and you can find it. So that's a very nice feature. Once you click on it, then you have to go down here and click insert. But that's an easy way to teach the students how to also use this as well. For videos, here are a couple of different websites. Audio, YouTube, they changed it a couple times. This is one of their sites though that will allow you to use their music, their sound effects for free, because if you post something on there that's not permission for, they block your video, you get a warning, you can get in trouble, all the things, but they have specific songs and sound effects that you can use. And the link right here for that to be so this is your sound effects, and you can search. You can search by genre, you can search by mood, by artist. You may not find, Taylor Swift on there, but you might find somebody else that you like. You definitely won't find Taylor Swift, though, probably. And then there's other things within WebWithIt presentation applications that will have their own music too. And then the Creative Commons, there's search. I linked, it's changed. I was going through my links and I was like, oh, a lot of these have changed in a year. This one though links to WordPress now, so they have a little bit different how you can search for it, but they are now doing just images and audio, it looks like, and audio is still in beta form. But you can search for it, and this is the Creative Commons license. I'll show you it's just gonna show you a little differently.
So if you use one of those pictures, you do not have to put any citation?
For which ones?
For-
No, you could, like the Wikimedia one, it depends on what the license is.
But they provide it for you so you can,
Yeah, you can just copy it. Yeah, so like this one right here is right here. So yeah, you can just copy that, and it's just a little line. And I mean, and if you don't do it exactly correct, it's not gonna be a huge deal. They just typically want the name and then what the license is.
What about on Google Docs where you inserted it?
If you're doing it for your class, it's not gonna be a big deal because it's classwork. If you want the students to do it, then there is typically,
That's one reason I don't like the Google Docs.
Yeah. there was a time when it would show.
I know.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and so it's kind of changed. So I'm wondering if they haven't changed them over to, if maybe they're public domain pictures now. So I said go in public domain after a certain period of time, or it could just be in public domain. But yeah, it used to be that it would have it, it would tell you where it was from, right in there. I don't know if image options will do that. And that's kind of one of those things where, you know, if I'm gonna show, make sure that I have all of my stuff, then I'll try to go somewhere else to find everything. But if I'm doing it for classwork and I don't care where the students show it, I'm okay with them doing it this way, because I want them to kind of learn. These are okay to get, maybe don't just go to the internet and use that. So it just kind of depends on what I want, you know, and I've also moved down from, you know, from middle school to elementary where if we can just do it the right way, that'd be great. I mean, you know, when you have kids and like, turn your computer or, you know, do this, and I'm like, I don't understand where we're at, so like, you're way behind. It just depends on what class though. Then there's also the Wikimedia Commons, where you have to just go to Wikimedia. And all of these have that already in them. So this is how I typically teach my students, because I just like this way best, because it's the easiest way to cite it. And it's just been, I've just found it to be my favorite. But if I'm in a hurry, I'll show them the Google Explorer. And then Internet Archive, .gov sites typically are public domain, and you can use things from the .gov sites without a problem. And then, you know, KT and PBS Learning Media, they have tons of resources out there. So always make sure you're looking for those too. All right, so this is, I saved the best for last today. If you've ever been in my copyright sessions before, I've talked about this. Has anybody ever been to one of mine before? Like, I typically have a few, like, familiar faces, and I was like, I don't think, I mean, some of you I know from other things, but I was like, I don't think I've ever had anybody in my session. So all of these are Ed Sheeran cases. It's only 5. I feel like there's more than 5 that he's had an issue with. The first song is not his song. The second song is always his song. And we're not gonna listen to all of these, but you can take a look if you want. And again, this is something I would do with kids. I think I actually did with my 4th graders this year. Usually when I hover over, it tells me which one it is. But all of these are copyright cases. Most have been settled. I think the only one that is still unsettled is this one right here. And as you can see, there's lots of things with this one. But this one is with Marvin Gaye's family. And if you know anything about Marvin Gaye's family, they are not going to give up on this. And all the rest, like I said, have been settled. And one of the newest ones actually was settled in Ed Sheeran's favor in court. Now, one thing I also want to point out is that a lot of these were not, Marvin Gaye that's in the United States, but a lot of the other ones are not. The newest one that got settled in court in Ed Sheeran's favor was in England, I believe. So they have different copyright laws than us. One was in Australia, it was settled out of court. And another one, I forget where all of them are, but the last one on here, Ed Sheeran has, well, I wasn't supposed to do it that way. was just to click it in the picture. There we go. So now Lisa says over. So Ed Sheeran has released a little video about it. I feel like this was, we'll see if this is making noise. Well, okay. So he's right. I love Ed Sheeran, even with all those cases, and even though I think a lot of them sound so close that I like if it had been a jury thing, I would be like, yeah, I feel like you stole that. But it's a judge thing, and that's okay. But he's right. It just you see it so often. You see it so often that you have to at some point realize. And my boyfriend is he works on guitars, like he's all very musical, and he's anytime these cases have come up, we talk about him, and he's like, well, I mean, like it's the same chord, but like you have that in other songs too. And I'm like, yeah, but they sound exactly the same. The notes are like here. And he's like, okay, and I was like, but he's like, yeah, like, and I'm like, okay, fine, okay. So I've got given a little more grace to Ed Sheeran recently for that reason. But you can go through, you can listen to the songs, and they will. Like some of them are just dead on, and you're like, that's pretty on there. But he is right. They are in the last case. It was just this one part of the song that sounds almost exactly the same, and some of like close words, not the exact same word. And the judge was like, maybe he did it. I don't think he ever heard the song. I think it's just a coincidence that it happened. And they actually like are requiring this other artist who's not a big name person to pay Ed Sheeran's legal fees, like $1.5 million. So that might get settled out of court too, but that's, he's been hit by a lot of them. Okay. So some of the other things. So right here's what it says. It's the OY part is what it says. OY. Anyway. He says such similarities are only a starting point for a possible copyright infringement. Differences, there are a lot of differences between the relevant parts of the song, so that's why he favored the way he did. And that's just been with him for months. So I actually changed this around a little bit recently. This was like a Q&A, like what do you think is possibly a copyright infringement? So the first one I took off because I would say it's fair use because fair use covers fair use. But what did we know? What did we learn today? Fair use, you can sue anybody. So is it? I don't know. And I don't know if this is the Peterson Farm Brothers, or the Peterson Brothers, if you've never heard them, they're great parodies. They're all like country song, like they're about farming, but none of them are necessarily country songs. They're just great. But yeah, you can be sued over anything. While parodies are typically covered, it is subjective. So I don't know. Uptown Funk though, that one was sued, and if you've ever heard Oops Upside Your Head, they sound so much alike, it's ridiculous. But Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson, they actually went and they were like, hey, yeah, they sound alike. I'm going to give you credit because you also deserve credit for that. It's kind of like Weird Al always asking permission, like he's giving that person credit. He's not trying to steal anything from them. They have some of the credit for that. Queen, David Bowie, and Vanilla Ice. I mean, yeah, you could even play it at school. Like I'd have it where you couldn't see what video I was playing. I played for the kids, and they would say, "That's Ice Ice Baby," and I was like, "No, it's actually Under Pressure." And I'd switch it up because there were some of those kids that do Under Pressure, And they would be like, that's under pressure. No, it's Ice Ice Baby this time. So, you know, there's a video, Vanilla Ice talks about it. He's like, I mean, the only thing that's the same is the hook. And I was like, I mean, the Ice Ice Baby song, like the name of your song, that part's the same? Okay, that's, okay. So he gave them royalties. And they even asked in the interview, because this interview was before it all went down. It's like, would you give them royalties if they asked for them? And he was like, yeah, and he did. And then that Sheeran song, this is twice for the same song. He might be on his third time. This is all the Marvin Gaye family. And it's even expanded past that family because someone else owns the rights to the, like, sheet music. So now they're going after him with the sheet music. So, that one's still, that's the only one, like I said, that's left, that's not been settled, that's still going to court, and I could not find another update. They were supposed to go to court in 2020. Nothing's really been updated on that, except that there's more lawsuits. So which of these would be a violation of copyright in education? So anything I use for class is fine, because it's for education. Such as showing movies purchased by the school to use for rewards, post materials online to share with my students on my website, giving credit to the source. Is that okay? No,
The rewards.
Like the rewards entertainment.
and if you're posting it to your website, if you didn't, even if you gave credit, your website's for everybody. It's not just, I mean, it could be. So those are things you can't just do without permission. Now, if you had permission, you could. But I had a teacher many years ago, because I mean, even when I was first teaching, we were still like on some of the sites where you could download music at school and play, and you can play it. That's not just like, there's not really a license that allows you to just play music for students. Now, we do that, but if someone wanted to say something, like we could possibly get in trouble because we just played a song in class for no reason other than it's a reward. I mean, but typically no one says a whole lot. It's not a whole movie. You know, they're not coming after you for playing a song. But if you don't have the license for that, that's not necessarily, because it's not educating the student. And that's where everything's going to come under. You know, fair use, Teach Act, everything's going to be related to teaching. And if it's unrelated, it can't really cover you. I can show a movie that I bought. It's not the schools, in class, if it relates to what I'm teaching, even though my school does not have a movie license. If your school doesn't have a movie license, but it relates to what you're teaching, can you show it? Yeah, it's under fair use.
As long as the judge agrees.
As long as the judge, yes.
You are
Yes.
You agree. So
Yes. Again, you know, Back to the Future 2, War Games, those are my two like go-to movies in middle school related to technology, because I never showed movies. I've never had time. We were lucky to get through everything I was trying to teach. But yeah, and that's always related. That's always what I was showing in those classes. And we didn't have a movie license. But I felt comfortable enough that I was like, no, this is fine. My school can get in trouble for breaking copyright, even if we cite the source or the material does not have a copyright symbol.
Right.
Yeah, because does it have to have a copyright symbol to be copyright now? Everything. Everything has a copyright. It doesn't matter. That symbol, that's what a lot of teachers have said over the years. It didn't have that copyright symbol. Yeah, okay. And that doesn't matter. That just means it has the, you know, the copyright information registration for it, and they put it on there, but you don't have to. You can put the copyright symbol on stuff that doesn't, you know, that's not yours, you know, and say, this is my copyright. Well, no, it's someone else's. You know, they made it first. Some things I can show in my class I may not be able to use online because the setting of my classroom is different online versus virtual and blended learning online. Yes, also true. So the copyright violation was that very first one. You can't just do it at your school. No matter what you think, you know, you're not the person that's going to come down on that. So right here's the movie license, if you want that. And schools do have consequences when they get caught. Now, I've been in this room. I was telling somebody, they're like, you're in room 154. I was like, this is the room I'm always in. I don't think I've ever taught in another room with KT, but this one. And, you know, I've been in this room and had people say, well, is it okay? So say that we get this movie and like, it's not even out in the theater yet, but someone brings us a DVD or it's in the theater. It's just in the theater. But it's not out on video yet. And I was like, so it's illegal.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, should we be able to show that? And I was like, no. And she goes, that's what I told the district, they didn't care. And I was like, well, at least you told them. That is not on you. You tried. You know, we can only do so much if, you know, but you're not gonna be the one getting in trouble for it. And that's what you always have to worry about. I told you, and that's all the teachers at school. Cause I know, and you all probably know too, teachers are streaming stuff at school. Cause it's so, especially our district now, we got the new boards. Well, they don't have a DVD drive. I have purchased some like external ones, but they're not nicely like displayed. And I don't have enough for everybody. And I told them they could use their own like classroom money, and no one wanted to buy their own. They just wanted to come check out mine. And I'm like, well, you know, gotta use all my library money to purchase them. But I'll purchase a good chunk of them. You can come borrow them. But, you know, they don't want to take the time, or it's harder. It's so much easier to just pull it up. So they're streaming, and I just tell them, I'm just telling you, you're not supposed to do that. You make whatever decision you want. I'm not going to be the one getting in trouble. So the getting caught, that's the big one. All right, so which of these is a violation of using music on YouTube? I can download free music from YouTube to use in my projects online. Yeah, that one website, if you go to it, it allows you to use those. All of those are free to use. I can use popular songs on YouTube depending on the license with YouTube and that specific song. If you go to YouTube and you search, there could be songs that allow for you to use that are popular. But you have to search to see that specific song. As long as I buy the song legally, I can use any song I want on YouTube as long as I credit the artist. All my students thought I could do that. But I bought it on iTunes. It doesn't matter if you bought it on iTunes. You don't own the copyright, nor did you ask the publisher. You didn't get permission. Now, with that, I've had some students find like random songs on the internet or on YouTube from people who like made their own music and put it on there. And they're like, I want to use this in my project. Contact the person on YouTube and get their permission. I had some, I was like, let me see where, you know, like we contacted, we asked permission, they gave permission. We got the file, we used it. We had that permission, we were able to do that. Now, could you do that with an artist? Again, it's going to go to the publisher. But if you want to go through with your students, I encourage them to do it all they want. You want to go to the publisher and ask. A lot of times they're going to ask for money. But if you're willing to do that, we had some that want to do that for an STLP project. So great, you want to use that song? Let's find out who we need to contact. And a lot of times it's not even the publisher, like a company that owns the rights to it, and you could buy it, things like that. And once you tell the kids that money are involved, like, now I'm good. So I can create a parody of a song and post it on YouTube.
Okay, full disclosure, I have done this.
But I mean,
For cake prep every year we do it, back to school we do it. And I have reached out and said, can I use this song? And I get 0 reply.
yeah, but it's not saying that you can't.
Yeah, well, and then when I post it, of course, I always give credit for the writers and the publishing company. But when I post it, YouTube always delays it like 24 hours. And they say, we're checking for copyright infringement. I get a little notification.
Yeah.
And then it goes through and says, you're okay.
Awesome.
So I'm hoping.
Yeah. Most of the time it's gonna be. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Typically parodies are gonna be covered. It's just if that person, like, don't do, you know, a Prince song.
Right.
I mean, that's probably not gonna be the best one. Probably don't do a Marvin Gaye song.
I actually did an Ed Sheeran song. So I'm gonna
Yeah. Right. If he doesn't understand, call me and I'll be like, listen, I got this.
I saw what you said. Yeah.
I said it was fun.
I said it was fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing, most people are not, you're not, because they're gonna be okay with it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a big deal, like, they're gonna understand it, it's not gonna be an issue, but it's just gonna be as a judge gonna care, you know, again. For the most part, yeah, and I've had teachers ask me for years, well, can I do it? And I'm like, Barry, you said you can.
Yeah.
However, it's
This
not
is
your
like
music.
year 5.
Yeah. Well, and I do
Yeah.
say, I do tell them sometimes, I don't know if you use like the track music or.
We do the instrumental.
Yeah.
And then I have somebody, I write the new words.
Yeah.
And then I have somebody else sing it.
Yeah.
So it's just the
Yeah.
instrumental.
And I'm sure that using the instrumental is probably what's getting the YouTube copyright. So like if you
Okay.
were to do it without that, without the instrumental music, then it probably wouldn't even recognize it. You know, because
Yeah.
the way it tracks it, it probably wouldn't even recognize it, you know, whatever. But again, it's not to say that what you're doing is wrong. That's not to say that at all. It's just saying, fair use, you have to decide. Do I think I could win this? You know, and most of the time I'm gonna go yes.
Yeah.
I would, if I was gonna do parodies and I would do it and I would not have a problem with it. And now you're like, if you're on TikTok, there's all kinds of stuff like that all the time. Are we not at 10? Okay, I was thinking 10:15. Okay, so there's some more on here if you want to go through. One of the biggest things this right here showed our news at school got dinged. And we got like, because they used an app and the app had this song, popular song, and it got deleted and there was an issue. And that just to show you it actually does work. And it will do that. So there's a few other things, but feel free to reach out to me. I do not have all the answers. I will never have all of the answers. But I am willing to help look for anything if you have that question, if you ever are in a situation. And hopefully some of those resources you can go back and take a look at, because again, I'm cramming a lot into an hour and 15. There's a lot more out there. And you might want to share it with your teachers, especially some of those copyright.gov videos. They were pretty easy and hopefully you understood them. I felt like they were probably some of the best stuff I've watched. And I also felt like, man, this feels like a credible source since you're the ones who wrote the law on this. So, well, thank you for coming today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.